stand-up comedians like Dave Chappelle. Today, though, racial comedy is one of the most prominent forms of entertainment, and it's used by comedians all in different backgrounds, including white people. So why is it so controversial? It's when a comedian has crossed that ever-moving line that we suddenly cringe and say, man, that's probably going to end up on Reddit in a few hours, and then following that, a public Twitter denial, following that, a public Twitter apology, and then following that, a Huffington Post article 3 days later, when everyone stopped caring. So what is JACL and other advocacy organizations' role in this? At what point is a joke just a joke, and when does it compel them to say something about it? We thought that this plenary would be a great opportunity to find out how the current membership of JACL defines when comedy becomes appropriate. So I want to warn everybody first. Obviously, some of the material that you're going to be seeing on these screens, you're going to find very offensive. You might hear some strong language, some adult themes, but it's all in the name of education, and we're all adults, so you don't need to hear much, okay? So joining us today are a few panelists you might know very well, representing the young and the not so young of the JACL. First, I want to introduce Floyd Morton. Floyd is the president and CEO of the Asia Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies and has previously served as the National Executive Director for JACL. He's been on the national board as the president and vice president, born and raised in Utah, went to USC, Brigham Young, got his major in economics, Asian studies, master's in additional economics and political science, and he taught economics. He really seems to like economics at Chabot College in Hayward. He was also the mayor of Pleasanton, which is a Bay Area city, and also served 6 years in the California State Assembly. Ken Inoue is a JACL lifer. He's been here for 30 years. National president, governor of the Pacific Southwest chapter, and president of the Southeast North Orange County chapter. He's active in various human relations organizations. Chair of the Orange County Human Relations Commission, past president and current treasurer of the California Association of Human Relations Organizations, and the founding chair of the Huntington Beach Human Relations Task Force. So he really knows human relations. So if you have any human relations related questions, you should probably ask him. Okay. Next up is Kota Mizutani. Kota is a Northern California native and active in JACL for 5 years. He was introduced to the Sonoma County chapter of JACL when he began playing taiko drums, and after serving as the chapter's board as a youth representative, Kota briefly served as the NCWNP youth representative. Kota is currently attending Brown University in Rhode Island and plans on majoring in political science. Yes. I did Santa Cruz political science. So. Now a member of the New England chapter, Kota serves as the EDC youth representative, and this is his 5th national convention. Jessica Chang is currently a graduate student in the field of communication disorders at California State University of Los Angeles. This LA County resident is an avid dinosaur enthusiast and a mediocre bowler. She has been involved in JACL since 2006, and in her free time, she enjoys bacon. Thank you all for being here today, and if you guys would just like to give us a brief introduction to yourselves about how you feel about this panel, the stuff that we're going to be talking about, just go ahead, let me know. How do you feel about the topic?
How I feel about the topic? I feel like it's a really important topic. Okay. I feel like it's a very important topic for our community because it's a slippery slope, really. There's no real definitive line between comedy that is offensive and comedy that is acceptable. So I feel like as a youth member, we should really look at our own comedy and what we think are funny, or we think is funny, because when we compare it to our parents or older generations, it's not always going to be the same.
Can you bring that microphone closer to you?
Okay. And furthermore, obviously I'm the only female on this panel. So when it comes to what I'm going to be saying and my opinions and everything, I don't represent maybe all the females, I'm only one person, guys. Don't go too hard on me. But I represent a whole lot of minority groups, as you can see. Japanese American. I'm a woman. I represent part of the LGBTQ. All those letters, one of those letters in the community, not all of them. But as parts of those small communities, I feel like there are certain things that are funny and certain things that aren't, and we can make fun of ourselves sometimes, but it depends on the audience. So it's going to be interesting to see what everybody has to say about this. Thanks.
I'm gonna watch out for your Oh, no. Hi, everybody. As mentioned, my name is Koki Sutani. You might have seen me at the youth luncheon with the red sunglasses. Here I am again speaking. Great. Thank you for the introduction. I just want to start off by saying that I'm honored to be sharing this panel with everybody here today, with Floyd Maury and Katie Noe and Jessica. It's a great opportunity. I think this is certainly a very important topic, like Jessica said, and I just wanted to give a little bit of a personal experience. It really first came to my attention when I was watching a TV show with a bunch of my friends. You know, it's something that I did on Sundays or on the weekends. And there were some jokes made about Asian Americans by Asian American actors. And my friends who were a mix of different ethnicities, they were not Asian American, they said to me, hey, that's funny, right? And it's okay because he's Asian American, so you can make jokes like that, right? And I didn't know what to say. And you know, to this day, that answer is still not definite to me. So I think this is a very important discussion to have. It's an ongoing discussion, and I look forward to fielding questions and hearing what everybody else has to say. Thank you.
Hi, excuse me, I'm Floyd, and of the little older generation. Can you hear me now? I'm sort of a, what can I say, more black and white guy when it comes to this issue. I tend to feel that racial, ethnic, bathroom, whatever type comedy really has no place. Because when white guys listen to it or kids listen to this comedy and it's out in the public, we become less sensitive to the whole issue of what's funny and what's really not funny. And it's probably because I grew up during World War II, was a little child after the war, and was the brunt of a lot of ethnic discussions as to who I was. I grew up in a white community, and I think I've become very sensitized to the whole issue of being who I am and what I look like. And so, to me, whether it be Colbert or Jay Leno or whoever it might be, we need to call them to task when they start making fun of who we are, because it's funny. Because to a lot of us, it really isn't funny, and I don't want it to become funny to my grandkids that people make fun of each other.
Thank you, Mr. Maury. First of all, when I told the youth in my district that I was going to be in this panel, they said, we can't imagine why you're not funny. So keep that in mind as a frame of reference as I give my opinion. Thank you. I am 4+1. My background in human relations gives me somewhat of a different perspective. Although I grew up like Floyd with an inherent distaste for racial epithets, my career in the human relations field has taught me that we have something known as the First Amendment. That it's a very special mistress to all of us. It's something because I didn't want somebody telling me what I can or can't say. And it's there for that exact reason. But also from the standpoint of human relations work, you hope that people will act and say things in a civil manner. Although there will be occasions when people don't, I have found that many times you sit down and you talk to folks and tell them that the N-word, the J-word is not something that's acceptable. And in most cases, I found that people to be at least listening. But I think we'll peel this onion to several levels and go to all different venues in terms of when this idea of comedy comes up. Because it is an interesting topic. It's something that affects everyone here in this room that looks like me. Because I know there's parts of this country where I will go and people will not see an American. And as hard as that is for me to accept, that's the reality of the world we live in. So I'm very thankful that we had this discussion because I think it's very relevant in today's time. Thank you.
All right, Craig, if you could come up here and explain to the audience how we're going to be voting.
Sure. So I'll actually do it from down here. So we're going to be doing some interactive polling today. So everyone should have a clicker that they brought in with them or that they received at the door. Does anyone not have one? Everyone is eligible to participate, by the way. There's no... Fantastic. Yes. Okay, so very simple to use, right? Just press the number on your device that corresponds to the number of your selection, the number of the selection on the screen. Very simple stuff. If you make a mistake, just push the right answer. Your last response will be the only one that's tracked. And all of this is confidential. None of this can be tracked back to you personally, so please answer honestly. One last thing, these devices, we've been using them at conferences and events for like the past 6 years. To date, we haven't lost one yet. So please, if you leave the room, just drop it off, on your way out, and make sure that you don't take it with you, put it in your bag. They don't open garage door openers, or they don't, control like your Nest thermostat. They're pretty much useless except for here. So that's it. If you have any issues, raise your hand and somebody will come along to help you out. Yes?
Do you want me to write these jokes down?
Yes, please. Yes, there. Make a book. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Craig. So for the first question, it's just going to be a test question.
Yes.
Are you going to? I'll let him post it up. All right, so the question is, who is your favorite Jimmy? Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, or neither? It's all about Team Coco. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so this is how the polling is going to work. After each clip that we show, we are going to be asking 2 questions. The questions will be, did this offend you? And the second question will be, did you want the JACL to take action on this? And we're going to split up the polling in terms of people age 30 and under, and then people age 31 and up. So first we're going to do 30 and under to get the youth perspective, and then 31 and up to get the non-youth perspective. I don't want to say old. I think it's just not a word I'm going to use today. So please make sure to do that. We'll prompt you when to do that vote. It'll happen directly after we show the clips. So let's show the first clip. Oh, demographic first, I'm sorry. So the question will be, approximately how many miles did you travel to get to this convention? Choice 1 is less than 20 miles. Choice 2 is 20 to 50 miles. Choice 3 is 51 to 100 miles. Choice 4, 101 to 500 miles. Choice 5, 501 to 1,000 miles. Choice 6, 1,001 to 2,000 miles. And choice 7, greater than 2,000 miles. Not bad at all. All right, a lot of 100 to 500 milers. All right, so, and the next demographic question is, are you a male or female? So, like we said before, none of these responses that you click can be tracked back to you, so please be as candid as possible. Wow, pretty even split. Okay. Remember, vote as fast as you can. Okay, how old are you? Choice 1, less than 16 years old. Choice 2, 16 to 18 years old. Choice 3, 19 to 21 years old. Choice 4, 22 to 24 years old. Choice 5, 25 to 27 years old. Choice 6, 28 to 30 years. Choice 7, greater than 31. We got a good representation over there on the bottom, don't we? We're all the young folks. You guys need to start doing some more recruiting in high school. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna show the first clip now, so if you could please pay attention to the screens.
Do you have the links? Now the links are a symbol of eternity, because in the link there is no beginning, there is no end, because it's a circle.
That's kind of nice.
It's not like a triangle. Triangle has like a corner in the end. This one is a circle.
Okay, we get it. Pretty close.
Please exchange the links.
Alright, take that. Thanks.
It's a promise of your love forever together,
Beautiful.
for all eternity, because it's a circle.
Yeah, we heard about the circle.
Yes, with
Yeah.
million shapes.
Hey! I now pronounce you husband and husband. You may kiss the husband.
What do you mean?
Kiss the husband.
Yeah, we heard you.
So take a picture, we just gotta do this.
Mm-hmm. That's how we roll in our house, baby.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Do you do me?
Oh, you couldn't handle it, little man.
Yeah. I think your witness is himself.
Key. The wires are all in place, and they have tapped all of our phones. The Chinese government is in them. And Elizabeth Taylor is Bigfoot. Turn off the ring.
Yeah.
There's a microphone in the table. They move.
He smells like a dead water buffalo. Oh yeah, let me do it! He broke his leg!
So, if you guys could vote on that now, for the 30 and under group, did you find this personally offensive? Yes or no? Slight yes response. And for the 31 and up? One is yes, two is no. Oh, this is for 30 and under. Do you think the JACL should take action on this? Sorry about that. Okay, 59% said no. Now we go to the 31 and up. Did you find this personally offensive? One is yes, two is no. strong showing. And do you think the JACL should take action on this? So that's a no, 64% said no. So now I just want you guys to remember this format that we're doing, 30 and under, 2 questions, 31 and up, 2 questions. So let's bring it to the panel. What did you guys feel about this clip? Whomever wants to start.
I'll start anyway. I was gonna split it a little bit. I felt like it was probably a little bit offensive to me, just because the premise of that movie, I'm not sure if everybody knows, is they're 2 straight fellows and they're getting married, and I wasn't really sure why, I can't remember. But the way that they reacted about 2 men getting together was just kind of off to me. It was like very violent and offensive to me. But because we're here talking about race issues, I'll address that as well. I feel like that was a little bit over the top, and I wouldn't want all of our community to be represented that way, but provided this kind of humor, if you guys are familiar with the actors and the kind of humor that they use, it's very similar to all their other material. So if you're familiar with that, it's not necessarily offensive to everybody. So when it comes with the JACL and if we should really take action, it really depends on whether or not we're going to take into consideration, the actors and their whole work, or if this is just an isolated incident that is specifically over the top offensive.
Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, looking at it from a broad perspective, it had a little bit for everybody. It characterized a homosexual relationship. It's characterized a person with disabilities, characterized Asians, and it's just really made no sense at all. Yeah, but from the standpoint of, and I guess Floyd mentioned the impact on grandchildren, now that I'm a teacher, I worry about the kind of impact on other people this kind of movie would have. Anytime in a movie or a caricature depicts other people in a light that's less than human, or perhaps something to be made fun of, I get concerned. And it's not just the Asian American side, but the human relations side. Because when people stop looking at people as people, but rather as stereotypes, that's when we start to have the wagons fall off the wheels fall off the wagon, so to speak. And I guess for that reason, I just found it unreasonable. I would guess that it certainly would be protected by the First Amendment. But I would certainly remind people that it's a caricature of people in a way that's not realistic, and hopefully not to be taken seriously.
So, in regards to the panelists as well, do you feel like it harkens back to, let's say, Breakfast at Tiffany's Mickey Rooney?
Say that again?
Breakfast at Tiffany's Mickey Rooney pretending to be a Japanese man?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the real world today, that's how we perceive the world is how it is before us today. And if you went to Las Vegas to a wedding chapel, you might find an Asian American doing that kind of thing, but he talked just like me. And I think, to me, that's how the world of Asian Americans needs to be depicted as we really are. Not as foreigners, but as Asian Americans who speak good English, who do what any other American would be doing. So, that kind of offended me that they had to go to that extent to stereotype what an Asian would be.
That was it was very, I don't know how to quite put this. Whenever I see clips like that characterizes Asian Americans or any minority group in that way, there's always, for example, the story that I was telling earlier of myself and my friends, all of your friends will laugh. Everybody in the theater will laugh. And naturally for some people, and I know especially for the 30 and under category, that might make you want to laugh too. And if that was something that you felt like doing during this clip, I know some people laugh, and I totally understand that. But what I think it takes for the, at least speaking for myself and perhaps maybe for those who are of the younger generation, it takes reflecting back on history to really understand what effect this kind of characterization has. I did a little bit of a research paper at Brown on comparing Asian American stereotypes in the media in the 1920s and in the modern day in the 1990s and 80s. And when I saw, that image of a man with, very small eyes, the teeth coming out, and a mustache, it was almost exactly identical to the type of very blatantly racist media that was perpetuated in the 1920s when Asians were first immigrating to the United States. So it was. And when that media was very prevalent. So when I think of that, then I understand that this is not an acceptable form of media at all. And I think in terms of how the JACL, would be, I would agree that the JACL should take action on this. And I understand also that some people it may be uncomfortable and it may be kind of angry. And I understand that some people would be very upset and very angry at this. But whenever I come across people who might find this funny or people who produce material like this, I see it as an educational opportunity. I think we've covered this a little bit already, but I think it's very beneficial for us to take these depictions and to really use that opportunity to educate people and to bring people together and not separate.
I think it should also be mentioned that Rob Schneider is apparently part Filipino. I don't know if that changes anything. Probably not. Okay, let's show the next clip.
I love joking about race. It's like my favorite. I was talking about this the other day. I was hanging out with literally all my black friend. And I remember I was like Temembe or whatever. Tapestry. It's something wild, It's something crazy. I mean, that's why they need Google in the delivery room, I think, right? It's everywhere else. Why not there, right? So when her mom was like, I'm gonna name you Temembo, Google would show up and say, did you mean Jennifer? Temembe, so I'm hanging out with tapioca and tempura or something. And what was she saying? She was like, girl, like I won't do some racist impression, so don't worry, but she was like, girl. Like mid-double dutch, and I'm just like, stop yelling, we're not at the movies. Thank you. I'm glad you guys laughed at that. That does not always work, I'll be honest with you. I mean, nothing works 100% of the time, right? Except Mexicans. I've noticed. That's the one, boo, right? Boo, Mexicans, I hear you. You guys are reaching to the choir.
All right, time to vote. So 30 and under, if you could please. Resounding yes. Okay, and then the second question? Slightly no. Okay. So I'm going to continue the conversation with the panelists who are 30 and under, just so we can move this along. How did you guys feel about this?
I was thinking about, I have a lot of friends whose younger siblings watch Comedy Central quite a bit, and that's what I was thinking. I think I understand now why my parents didn't let me watch TV late at night when I was a child. But I think it's a shame that parents have to look out so much for what their children are exposed to, and I think there are a lot of people today, I think, who think that we are in a race-blind society, or that we've come so far in our history that it's okay to make fun of race because everybody understands. And I think that's just simply not the case. I think a lot of people in this room would agree with me. So that kind of mentality is really it's a great obstacle that needs to be overcome. Is the idea that we have gone past racism, because as clearly we simply have not.
Really quick interjection. Can we make sure that the 31 and up group continue voting while we're having this conversation? Because there still has the voting on there.
Well, I guess this could kind of make me think about my personal experiences with, people who aren't Asian American, and I'll introduce myself and I'll be like, hey, what's up, I'm Jessica. And sometimes what happens is people are like, hi, what's your real name? And I'm like, Jessica. They're like, no, like your real name, like what's your real name? Like that's your American name, right? And I'm like, no, that's the name on my birth certificate, that's my name. And so this clip was kind of like the backwards thing, but it's the same idea where people assume that we're not really part of a society that we're really a part of. And when it comes to taking action, I think that it might not just be this clip, and we all know that it's not just this clip. We encounter these things out in real life, people that we just run across, but we're not going to take action against every single little bit and piece. But I feel like we should just kind of promote a tolerance, and make people more educated about the whole topic, that we are part of the whole. And when it comes to comedy and saying, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, sometimes I think part of the answer is saying, yeah, that's bad, but this is what the reality is, so.
Go ahead. Jessica brought up a very interesting thing about names. I just wanted to say that I don't think this is discrimination in any way, shape, or form, but even within the Japanese American community, sometimes I have an interesting encounter with names. My parents are both from Japan, so I'm a Shin Nisei, and my first name is Japanese Kota. It means a big thinker. And my middle name is Tim. And I think for a lot of my Japanese American friends, their first name is the typically Western name, and then they have a Japanese middle name. So when I talk to people, I introduce myself as Kota. Some of my Japanese American friends will say, no, what's your first name, not your middle name? And I say, oh, my middle name is Tim. And they say, oh, you got to switch it around. I think it's just kind of, I'm not saying that they are discriminating against me in any way, but it's a common misunderstanding.
Floyd or Ken?
You guys can talk now. I was very self-conscious watching that because I was feeling a victim to my own lack of humor. Because as I was watching it, I was thinking on the collateral impact of somebody watching that doesn't understand that kind of humor can be very hateful and hurtful. And that's what I've seen the collateral impact in communities. When people not knowing that although it might seem funny on its face, it's something that really can make somebody very self-conscious and hurtful. And I got it. The fact that I have no humor probably makes me totally inappropriate for this panel. But that's the reality. And I've had discussions with people. I remember we had a workshop with some football players at Golden West College, Huntington Beach. And one of the big tackles came up to me, and I thought he was going to beat me on the head. He said, Mr. Ken, what am I going to do? My grandmother's a racist. Am I going to change her mind? The reality is no. But that football player had second thoughts. So I think the work we do is we take one step at a time. And you just kind of look to the fact that people are people. And many times they'll be sensitive to the fact that they didn't know that those kind of things could be hateful to another person.
Very gracious of you.
You know, to be frank, yeah, I really didn't get it to begin with. I couldn't clearly hear what she was talking about. And I sort of grew up in a monoculture society, and so some of the innuendos in ethnic communities, one against another, sometimes I don't get it because I don't understand it. And this is one that I didn't really get. So,
So, if you're not familiar with Amy Schumer, she's kind of one of those shock comedians. She's fairly popular right now, I think, on Comedy Central, and I think that she just likes to play into those kind of stereotypical tropes. And Craig, I want to call you out for a second, but is there a reason why that poll isn't showing up? There we go. If you could just make sure to do that, we're going to continue the conversation as we're doing the polling. Okay, thank you. I think we should just move on to the next clip, so.
No sign of Mama Say, Mama Saw, Mama Han? I don't know what she looks like. She's here. Mama! I can't tell if she's a smaller him or if he's a smaller her.
엄마, 오셨어요. 너무 좋아요. 여기는 윌리엄스버그 다이너예요.
아, 네, 고맙다. 식당이 사진보다 훨씬 더 크네.
You must be Han's mother. I'm Earl. I was just reading the Bible. Because when am I not?
Mother, this is Caroline.
안녕하세요. 어머님이 뉴욕에 오셨어요. 환영해요.
Caroline, I didn't know you spoke Korean.
I took it as an elective after I mastered Japanese. I had a hunch Asia was going to take over the world, and congratulations, right on track.
Caroline, your Korean is very good. And this is Max.
Nice to meet you, Mrs. Lee. What does that face mean in Korean? It means zip up your top.
Here, Mother, sit. You must be hungry.
I'll get you a menu. That's weird. These usually bring joy to the people.
Honey, where is your girlfriend?
You'll meet her at dinner tomorrow. She wanted to be here, but with church and all her work and brain surgery, she is very busy.
And I thought it was unrealistic when you had a girlfriend that didn't need an air pump. Hun, what are you thinking? How are you ever going to pull this off?
With the help of my two best friends.
Oh, good. Who are they?
Please have June come to your apartment and we can brief her.
Well, if it's with you, it's going to be brief.
Remember, you owe me.
No, hon. At that club, I saw a pregnant wall, so... I think we're even.
All right, so who's familiar with the show Two Drunk Girls? And who's... That's the name of it, or... No, Two Broke Girls, I'm sorry. Tomato, tomato. Okay. So if 30 and under group can vote now, so we can do the polling while we're having the conversation. Just to point out, I don't think either of those actors are Korean, and I don't...
If you are any color, you talk like the way that everybody else will assume that color talks. But, you know, the flavors of language are a little rough, you know? I speak Chicano English sometimes, and you wouldn't expect that from me, but that's the way things are. I also had a comment on the mom. You notice they were wearing the same clothes. If anybody knows the cardigan, which is kind of weird, kind of stereotypical of the way that, you know, people assume, okay, you see a lot of parents where like the mom and the kid dress alike. And I feel like it kinda, sorta suggested that he's totally a mama's boy. Because kids do that when they're little, but it's only because their mothers force them. So it goes along with the, if it goes along with the stereotype, then I don't know. It depends on what your view on that is as an adult.
As I was watching that clip, the thought occurred to me that we're looking at this work product after the fact. And I used to belong to a group called Media Action Network for Asian Americans. And what they would try to do, and I know JACL did when I was VP of Public Affairs, we would try to meet with these executives of TV programs before the product was launched. To provide input. Now, because I don't know what the current environment is in terms of the media caring about how ethnic communities feel about things or how they're depicted. But certainly at one time, I know we were consulted. Remember that movie, Pearl Harbor? We were consulted in that particular movie because people at the studio thought we might be impacted. But people may think of Japanese Americans in a different way. So JACL was consulted. We did do screenings, and we did give our input. That was very satisfying because at that point we thought a major studio cared about our community and not after the fact. I don't know what the total environment is today, but I would say that maybe if we were concerned about this kind of thing, we should join forces with, I saw Stuart Cole here earlier, is he still here? Okay, well, we should join forces with other Asian American groups and request to be involved with the planning of the storyboards for these kind of programs. Because once you see, and we can't do anything about the comedians because they're not going to sit there and ask for our opinion. But for these major studios, if they can understand that we have a stake in this as well, then maybe they'll give us the respect to participate in the storyline. And one of the things too that also occurred to me now, there's a lot of ethnic communities that have a lot of weight in this country. It's all about money. Remember how quickly the NBA reacted to Sterling's answers when all the sponsors quit? I mean, those are the kind of coalitions of the realities of the world we live in today. And to look at these cuts after the fact, we're never going to get a step ahead. I think we need to set the table, and I guess, so that we can be more proactive. We've got some really talented people here. Maybe we can maybe change the way things are done so that it's more of a level playing field.
Okay, if we could play the next clip.
Let's begin our tour with a walk through our tunnel of prejudice to show you what it can feel like to be discriminated against.
Queer, booner, shink, nigger, heap, faggot, cracker, snubhead, this is Ida.
Now you know how it feels.
I want to ride again, I want to ride again.
We are now entering the Hall of Stereotypes. These wax figures represent how some intolerant people have labeled minorities. Here we see a black person eating chicken and watermelon, a stereotype that hurts the African American community. What other stereotypes do you see here?
Here's the Arab as a terrorist.
That's right, but of course we know that not all Arabs are terrorists, don't we, kids?
Well, there's Nation Day with a calculator.
That's right, not all stereotypes are negative, but even a positive one like all Asians are good at math is harmful to society.
Look, a covetous Jew.
Very good, young man. The idea that Jews are only interested in money is very old indeed.
Here's a good one. It's the stereotypical sleepy Mexican. What? Oh, man, what time is it? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were a wax sculpture. No, man, I'm the janitor. I'm supposed to be cleaning, but I'm so tired. I'm so sleepy.
This is our discovery room. Take your time at the computer displays because you see, being tolerant, you must also learn to respect people who are small, people who are disabled, even people who are overweight, like this young man here. You other boys have probably called this young man names like Tubby or Lard Butt or Fat Tits.
Fat Tits, that's a good one. Yeah, I remember.
All right, so who here watches South Park? Yeah, so for everyone who does, you know that they make fun of everybody. nothing is off limits for them. And I think that clip pretty much shows it. So we can, if we get the 30 and under group vote first. Okay, so to continue the conversation while the polling's happening, what did you guys feel about that? Did you feel like that was a representation of satire? Were they trying to make a political statement?
I'm a big fan of turning jokes around. I come across a lot of, racial jokes sometimes, and sometimes I know that people are being kind of racist, and I'll flip the joke against them and be like, hey, and show them they're being silly, by assuming that I'm something that, I'm not. And I felt like this clip definitely did that. It seemed like in some parts of it, like in the beginning, where they try to make you feel like, hey, this is what it's like to be, the target of such awful language sometimes. But toward the end, when they're like, hey, for example, here's this guy, you probably say all these things about that person, and kids are like, yeah, maybe we should. But if you're familiar with the show, that kid is really, really mean, and it gives the kids an opportunity to give some perspective to Cartman, and let them feel like, what it's like when he makes fun of them. And sometimes I feel like it's a little bit of, comic justice.
Only difference is he never learns.
Yeah.
He just gets more racist. Is the 31 and over group voting? Just making sure. No, Craig's just away from the table. Go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to first thank Jessica for giving us some perspectives on each of these clips. Individually these clips are racist, and I definitely do not agree with them. But I think in every situation which you come across in media or in personal interactions with people, it's always important to have a general context. But that comes with an exception, and that is the audience. So in my, I think comedy is a tricky thing because I think everybody here enjoys comedy, and I enjoy comedy as well. But it's always about how the audience will react. And so people will defend South Park by saying that, well, as you mentioned, they'll make fun of everybody. They don't leave anybody untouched, so they're not singling anybody out. But for the age range and the demographic that South Park targets and the people that usually watch that show, it's very hard to make that distinction, really. And so, the idea of satire is used to defend the show. And we learned about satire, at least I learned about satire in high school in my English class, and we brought up, there's a satire piece by Jonathan Swift, I think, or something about...
Modest Proposal.
Yeah, Modest Proposal. Who's familiar with the Modest Proposal? Right. Which English class did you take? It's about, I think it's Irish, about, the
potato famine.
Yeah, the potato famine in Irish. It's satire, and it's a proposal for Irish parents to eat their children, or sell their children for food. And it's satirical because it's trying to point out, the poverty that the Irish people were living at the time compared to people in British people. So it was that kind of satire is different because there's a context that everybody understands there. But in this day and age, it's very hard to make that distinction with the audience. So again, I think the audience is really the big part of this, and so that's why I think you can't say just because you make fun of everybody, that doesn't mean that that kind of satire is acceptable.
Lloyd or Ken?
Yeah, just quickly, satire, people laugh at it. And if people laugh at it, it's okay. And when something is depicted as racist, even if it's satire, I think it's not okay. And you know, you're trying to be funny, but if you're the brunt of that satire, it's really not funny to you. I think you've all experienced that. All the stuff that goes on late night TV about Asian Americans and you know, the things that we're supposed to do. It is not funny. It's not funny.
Two things came to mind when I was watching that. Satire, satire that makes fun of anybody, I guess, is really something that I have a hard time dealing with, because although it may not be me the first time, it certainly could be me the second time. So if I don't say anything the first time, it may be me the second time. And I think people need to know that there's a moral standard that needs to be heard. Now, I only heard of South Park through, I've never watched it. I understand it's important, or it's just popular. But I think the point of something being so popular and accepted, if you know, and I don't want to overstretch it, but if you think about it, that's how we ended up in an internment camp. It became a reality that people accepted without thinking. So I think there's a real danger to be so desensitized to these kind of activities that, and to realize that, you know, a lot of these people that are watching this are not really thinking what the impact could be. So I tend to be very, I guess, conservative. I am not just interested about the Asian community, because I know we're all targets and we could be the next one. So again, I guess I'll show my age and my lack of humor by voting 2 thumbs down on this particular script.
I think it's actually interesting because the context of that episode, the title of it was called The Death Camp of Tolerance. And for people who did not understand tolerance, they were sent to a concentration camp to learn tolerance. So it's kind of like a dual layer of really weird satire. All right, if we could show the next clip.
Did you get good grade? You do good in school? Did you finish homework? My friend are born a doctor. Why you not doctor? Dude! I don't have money. How much money you need? No! 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 Baby! Respect your elder! Respect your elder! Anh không lại kìa.
Turn left, get on the freeway, but you want to go right.
Đủ mà. So cheap, so cheap, so cheap, so cheap. So expensive. I see that. So expensive, so expensive, so expensive. Who that boy? Are you virgin? Who is he? Buy your own car. No boyfriend till college. I come here with 5 cents. No boyfriend till you marry. Rap music is black. Kill you. No dancing till married. I kill you until you die. No sleepover. I kill you before you even try to die. No fucking shit Asian dad say. This.
All right, shit Asian dads say. Now let's vote on that. Okay, 30 and under. There should be a vote on who actually felt like that was true to life. Okay. Have you guys voted already? All right, Jessica and Kota. So, did you feel like they were playing on a stereotype that exists, and the fact that it was done by an Asian American male, did that lend any credence to it?
I thought it was pretty funny. But let it be said that I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley in California, where it's one of the biggest Chinese American populations ever. And saw a lot of scenes where in 99 Ranch, where I frequent. And actually, a lot of people, you'd be surprised, like, when I first saw it, I was like, I feel like I should be offended, but I'm not. And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, yeah, you do hear a lot of coughing. There is a lot of stuff that's covered in saran wrap. And when I did go to, my friends' houses as, a child, they did a lot of things that I didn't do that I thought were totally weird. And I started going to all my other friends' houses and realized, like, these things that I thought were totally weird are totally normal in their community, so why am I acting like it's weird? So I'm not offended. But other people who aren't familiar with the culture, maybe they might find it like, oh my gosh, that's so bad. It would be worse if, the person who was portraying, this character was not Asian American. But the whole thing about how they're talking to the daughter, it's like, what? No dating till college, or dating till whatever. And those are actually things that my dad said to me. Believe it or not. And I'm the only girl in the family, so it's not necessarily untrue. And my dad is a Chinese dad, so, it kind of rings true in some respects. But, a little bit over the top sometimes when they're snoring everywhere. Sometimes you just have to spend some time in the community to know if things are a little bit true or not. And the thing with comedy is it's an art form, so when it does come to comedy, if there's a joke, sometimes, or almost all the time, there's a little bit of truth to it, so you have to take it for yourself.
I just want to say that being from on this side of the panel, I can see all of your facial expressions as you're watching these clips, and as you're looking at the statistics, and there is a broad range of facial expressions. I'm also a little bit, I've been keeping track of the statistics, and they're pretty interesting. I'll get to what I'm willing to say, what I marked down. The first thing I want to say is that there are indeed some things in that clip that I can certainly relate to. And did I laugh inside? I did. My father was, he doesn't have a thick accent, but my father certainly likes to talk about how cheap some things are, how expensive some things are. And sometimes he will react to the bone that way. Well, the thing is that I understand that as something that's just who my dad is. It's not because he's Japanese or Asian American, it's just because that's my dad. He doesn't wear red vest though. I'd like to see him wear red vest. The thing is that, so even if perhaps to me the entire thing was not, to me offensive, I marked down two, and I was personally offended, it was for this reason, is that the creators of this video who put this, is this on YouTube? Yes, YouTube, yes, YouTube channel. So, they put this out onto YouTube. It's as you heard yesterday from the social media, there's a large audience that watches YouTube. And not all of them will be able to understand that, for me, my father, and that's just how my father is, and that's not just because he's a Japanese national. So the creators of this YouTube video are kind of assuming that people understand it. And they don't understand that if there are people out there who do not discern the difference, who cannot tell that how harmful or how untrue that can be for many people, then I become the victim of that kind of stereotype. And so that's why I was personally offended, because there was kind of a lack of consideration there. And this is tying back to what I said earlier about it's about the audience. And when you have social media networks that will go to everybody around the world, you cannot simply assume that people understand the message. So that's why I marked out number 2. But maybe my dad will write red vest someday.
So can I ask you, Kota?
Yeah.
If it were an Asian audience only?
Right. So then that also becomes difficult, because that is not necessarily true for all people. for example, there were things in that video that does not apply to me. Certainly, my father, I think, in my experience, has been pretty good at parking. I thought. So I think he would agree. So there are things that you have to get down to the individual level. I agree. So if, for example, if there was a video that was made that catered exactly towards my own father's image, and just for me as an audience, that might be acceptable. And that happens on a friend-to-friend basis sometimes between me and some of my Japanese friends. But if it's not in that context, then it becomes a problem. So that's a very good question. Thank you. I got an opportunity to clarify myself. Thank you.
Yeah, if it's just between my brother and I think it's something that, it might be funny about my dad. My dad was quiet, he didn't snore, and he didn't do any of the things that are depicted on that film. And it goes back to, I remember World War II films depicting Japanese. And I was Japanese, but goodness, my brother wasn't like that, my mom wasn't like that, so it made me confused as a kid. Who am I? What am I? Because the world was depicting Japanese as the enemy and bucktooth and, thick-eyed, whatever, all the bad, negative things, and I just couldn't relate to it. And the same thing here. It was offensive to me because the older gentlemen that I know, I can't think of any that, behave in that particular manner. We wouldn't behave any different than a white guy would. Or any ethnicity would if he's tired, he's a little older, and he's a little bit more sleep. I mean, that's every human being. And so to depict it as an Asian characteristic was very offensive to me.
I also noticed that the 31 and up portion of the audience was really personally offended by that clip. I wonder why.
Kind of set me up. When I heard you say that the person that made this video was an agent, it reminded me of the pain I felt. Remember Pat Morita, Mr. Miyagi? One of the most beloved Asian American actors in his later years. But he started off as the hip nip. Who remembers it? He played a drunkard. He played a buffoon. And I can remember a tremendous amount of shame because I knew there were people looking at him and looking at me and thinking we were the same. Now I believe, as said, that people have a right to make a living. Who am I to say that a person shouldn't choose to have parts that feed his family? But I think, and I'm going to take this out of the context of media, the way you fight these stereotypes is in the real world. You have a vice president of AT&T back there, Mr. David Lynn. That's how you start breaking these stereotypes. You have a state assemblyman, like my colleague here, Mr. Moore. That's how you break those stereotypes. We could sit here and fiddle and faddle and wring our hands, but that's not going to change some of the things that are just realities. What will change is when people and our young people become policymakers, when our young people become executives in media, or other social, and what do you guys call it?
Justice.
Yes. But that's the way we change. I guess, like I said, you look at this, the cat's out of the bag when you see this. And it doesn't have to be this way, so thank you.
Well, the question that I want to pose to all of you is that, do you feel like the intended audience for a video like this is the general population, or is it specifically niche for APIs?
Something I wanted to comment about, actually. I know young folks, some of us are aware of that kind of string of videos, like stuff, blank, people say, stuff, blank, girls say. There's always some sort of adjective, and a lot of times it's people making fun of themselves. sometimes that's okay, sometimes that's not okay, but who are we to say? And usually when we think about things that are offensive, it's the people who we perceive to be the victims, right? Well, those quote unquote victims will say, we don't think that's cool. So the people in power are gonna say, hey, okay, we apologize, and maybe we're being insensitive to what you guys think is the right way that we should be talking about, this kind of humor. And what's interesting with these strings of videos, stuff, whatever people say, is that I thought this one was targeted specifically for individuals in immigrant communities such as my own. And I think it's important that we realize that maybe sometimes the comedy that comes out of, the internet especially, which is like a really good sounding word for all sorts of things, Asian Americans are producing these things. Like, they have the opportunity to, put themselves out there and make their own media and make it be seen. So sometimes, even though it might be offensive, their target audience might not be everybody else. It might be saying like, hey, we can make our own film, we can make, art forms that, can be seen by the rest of the world too. And we definitely make ourselves part of that whole film community, and I think that's important.
I'd make a quick question or comment. Even if it's for Asian American audience, or my brother and sister, it becomes used and fodder for the other, those that create the Mickey Rooney and the Jerry Lewis type and this type of comedy. It justifies what they do. So, I have a problem with Asian Americans doing this kind of stuff, even if it's for Asian Americans, because then everybody else says, it's okay, no problem. And it is a problem.
So then is that an issue of people misunderstanding satire?
Yes, and I feel that that's always going to be a problem. There's always going to be someone that's going to misunderstand what you have to say, and I feel that has a lot to do with communication and miscommunication, because we're in this age where, say you put out a statement and there's just words on a paper, and language is so dynamic that something that might be completely normal sounding right now might be offensive in maybe 5 years, because we add new words to the dictionary all the time. We have new phrasing, we have new ways of talking about things, and I really feel like, this whole idea is just going to be a big fluid thing that sometimes we just have to think about the repercussions for, future generations and what to put our foot down on.
Okay, so we're,
Let me just give a little personal experience. When I was in high school, all my friends were Caucasian. And, there weren't a lot of minorities. There were no African Americans in my high school, about 1,000 people. There were a fair amount of Hispanics and maybe 2 Japanese Hispanics. And I was with my buddies one day, and a Hispanic girl came walking by, and they really disparaged her because of who she was and what her race was. And, it was okay, right? It was okay among these guys to do that. What happened in my mind? Initially, it's okay to disparage somebody that's different ethnicity for one reason or another. And so, that's why I'm a lot more black and white on these things. There's no, it's wrong, it's wrong. And we get our impressions, our youth get impressions, our little kids get impressions by these kinds of incidents, and it just continues to perpetuate the stereotypes, the negative things that we really aren't. We need to be depicted as who we really are. We're lawyers, and we're doctors, and we behave and have a lot of values, just like, the guy across the street who's the corporate president. And that is not depicted in the media relative to Asian Americans. We're always the lower level, so what does the corporation think? Well, they're satisfied with being lower level. They don't have to be the president or the vice president. And, look at the Fortune 500, and, we had a meeting not too long ago, Priscilla and I, with a very major California utility. And they're right smack in the middle of an Asian community, and 20% of their employees are Asian, but they're all lower level. Not the one in the higher management level. So people begin to perceive us as the media and movies and TV portray us. And, you know, I just very strongly feel that they need to begin portraying us as we are and who we are in society, and not what some comedian thinks we are.
Okay, if we could play the last clip.
Welcome to New York Sports Now, Dan Mardell. Knicks point guard number 17, Jeremy Lin, and the Lynn Sandy surrounding him. Now, despite the Knicks' loss in New Orleans, the Big Apple is still in the middle of a Jeremy Lin invasion. Fellas, do you have Lynn Sanity?
Hey, you better lock me up. I mean, I am criminally Lin-sing. Oh, yeah. My feelings are Lin-tense. It's Lin-describable. See, I am literally Lin-love with this Jeremy Lin.
We'll never get tired of Lin puns.
Well, as Charlie Sheen would say, Lin.
That's another thing we never got tired of. Yeah. Now, with all the talk swirling around Lin, some of the discussion has gotten racially charged. We've seen derogatory comments from Fox Sports' Jason Whitlock and ESPN.com. The bottom line is, the kid's a great basketball player, and race has nothing to do with it. The New York Post says he's Amazing.
I mean, he's unstoppable. He's like that 5:30 Wednesdays game. Lin is the Knicks' good fortune. He's sweet, not sour. He turned Kobe into Kobe beef. And Kobe's like, hey, I ordered fried chicken.
Leave race out of this. Fellas, Jeremy Lin had some amazing moments this week. What were some of your